Tiempo para el siguiente panel. Ya tenemos nuestros invitados que acaban de llegar. El voto latinoamericano en las elecciones estadounidenses. Noten que nos referimos al voto latinoamericano, lo cual me parece un matiz interesante en este foro. Siempre se habla del voto latino únicamente, ¿no? Y esa conexión con América Latina me parece relevante. Llamo al escenario a James Holtje, es profesor adjunto de Asuntos Internacionales y Públicos de la School of International and Public Affairs de la Universidad de Columbia, al representante en el Congreso de Estados Unidos, Adriano Espaillat, y a Katharine Pichardo, presidenta y directora ejecutiva de Latino Victory. Por favor.
Muy buenas tardes a todos y todas. And that's all I'm going to say, because the U.S. Constitution says there's no cruel and unusual punishment, so I won't subject you to my really bad Spanish. So, welcome everyone. As I said, my name is Jim Holtje. I'm an adjunct professor at Columbia University School of International Public Affairs. It's my pleasure to moderate the next panel on Latin American vote in the U.S. elections. In 41 days, New Yorkers will go to the polls to choose a mayor in a bellwether election that's being closely watched, not just here in this city, but nationally and internationally. In just over 1 year, Americans will vote for a new Congress and 1/3 of the U.S. Senate. And in just over 3 years, Americans will be voting for a president again. With 36 million eligible voters, this country's second largest voting bloc, by the way, Latinos have the power to decide election outcomes up and down the ballots, shaping America's political direction for years, maybe even generations to come. Joining us here today to discuss the Latino vote in the United States are Katharine Pichardo and Congressman Adriano Espaillat. Let me give their biographies. So, Katharine Pichardo is the president and CEO of Latino Victory, a national organization dedicated to building Latino political power. She began her career as a civic education organizer and later served in senior governmental roles. Born in the Dominican Republic, you can clap now, and raised in New York City, Katharine's combined political organizational expertise as well as executive leadership have made her a recognized change maker in the governmental, political, and civic arenas, empowering Latinos and ensuring that their voices are shaping this country's political and social landscape. Dominican by birth, a political fighter by nature, and a baseball fan to his core, Adriano Espaillat is a 5-term member of the United States House, where he proudly represents New York's 13th Congressional District, including Washington Heights, Harlem, Hamilton Heights, Inwood, Marble Hill, and a part of the Bronx. The first Dominican American, as well as the first formerly undocumented immigrant ever elected to the United States Congress, Espaillat serves as the chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, the largest body of Latino federal lawmakers, as well as serves as a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and whip of the Democratic Caucus, where he's known for advocating issues including healthcare, transparency, national infrastructure, as well as greater social security, accessibility, among many other issues. Please welcome.
Gracias por estar con nosotros aquí en la Universidad de Columbia, dentro del Distrito 13, que precisamente termina en la parte oeste, en la calle 110, y naturalmente en la calle este, en la calle 96, y toda la parte norte de Manhattan y una gran porción del Bronx. Es un distrito histórico, es el más pequeño geográficamente de todo el país. Se puede caminar en un día soleado, un día bonito como hoy, pero tiene, dentro del distrito, tiene vecindarios íconos, como es Harlem, que es la capital de la experiencia y el legado afroamericano mundialmente, al nivel de que uno puede visitar a cualquier país y entrar a un vecindario y decir, se me parece a Harlem. Tiene naturalmente el Alto Manhattan, que es el pulmón, el corazón de la inmigración dominicana. Incluso cuando uno cruza el puente George Washington, uno prende Google y dice Little Dominican Republic, la pequeña República Dominicana. Y ya eso ha sido designado así, como un distrito histórico dominicano, no solamente por el gobierno estatal, sino también por el gobierno federal. O sea que los asiáticos y los chinos tienen a Chinatown, los italianos tienen a Little Italy, los puertorriqueños tienen el barrio, los afroamericanos tienen a Harlem y nosotros los dominicanos tenemos a Washington Heights. De manera que, pero lo que nos trae aquí es tanto a Katharine Pichardo, quien dirige una organización nacional que inscribe votantes y avanza las candidaturas de latinos a nivel nacional, Latino Victory, una organización que señala y destaca candidatos latinos con alto potencial a nivel del país para aumentar la representación nuestra en el Congreso de los Estados Unidos. Actualmente, el Congressional Hispanic Caucus, el caucus hispano, tiene 43 miembros, 4 senadores y el resto congresistas. Y desde el año pasado yo presido esa organización como el primer dominicano. Los latinos son un grupo creciente en el electorado, se le llama como la comunidad el gigante durmiente, yo diría que ya está bien despierto. Cada año 1.4 millones de latinos se convierten elegibles para votar. Más de 1 millón de ciudadanos latinos se convierten de edad de 18 años cada año, o sea, elegible para votar. Cada 30 segundos uno de ellos se convierte elegible para ser votante. Y 400,000 latinos se convierten en ciudadanos todos los años. Es importante destacar que dentro de todos los grupos latinos, la comunidad que tiene una tendencia a convertirse en ciudadanos norteamericanos más rápida es la comunidad dominicana. Que el concepto de que tenemos un pie aquí y otro allá está cambiando dramáticamente porque muchos latinos ya naturalmente quieren establecer raíces aquí, sus hijos, como bien destaca la doctora Ramón Hernández en su reporte, la comunidad de dominicanos nacidos aquí sigue creciendo desproporcionalmente, considerándola a los nacidos allá. En el futuro, la gran mayoría de los dominicanos aquí en los Estados Unidos serán nacidos aquí. Latinos también están aumentando las poblaciones de votantes, no solo en distritos como este, el que yo represento, sino hay distritos pequeños, o mejor dicho, distritos con poca votación o poco número de residentes latinos, donde dominicanos también tienen una presencia que muchas veces tiene el impacto de ser decisivo en una elección reñida. Distritos como del Lehigh Valley en Pensilvania, las ciudades de Bethlehem, Allentown, entre otras, que son distritos mitad republicanos, mitad demócrata. La comunidad latina, que es en ese caso mayoritariamente dominicana, tiene la tendencia a poder ser decisiva en unas elecciones reñidas como las que pasan regularmente ahí. Los votantes latinos son de clase trabajadora y han crecido dramáticamente. Hemos visto una avanzada importante, una avanzada agresiva de parte del Partido Republicano para frenar acceso a la votación. El tema del voto por correo ha sido un blanco de ese partido, al igual que también el proyecto de ley de ellos que se llama The Safe Act, tiende a tener cláusulas que impiden el acceso a votación fácil para los votantes en general, como es, por ejemplo, el voto temprano. Aquí ahora en Nueva York se permite votar temprano por 8 días antes del día de las elecciones, dándole más posibilidad a los votantes a acudir a las urnas. El Partido Republicano opta tratar de frenar esa iniciativa, incluyendo el voto por correo, que ha sido un método usado por muchos votantes, no solo demócratas, pero también los mismos republicanos. Esto nosotros consideramos que son intentos para suprimir el ejercicio del voto, y también pensamos de que puedan ser iniciativas ilegales que se están actualmente retando en los tribunales a través de los Estados Unidos. Pero vamos a hablar de la actual condición política de los votantes, el sentimiento de los votantes desde 2016, y podemos ver que en el año 2016 la candidatura del presidente Trump recibió un 28% de apoyo entre los latinos. En el 20 subió a un 36% de apoyo entre los latinos, y en el 24 vimos un aumento significativo cuando llegó a recibir un 48% del voto latino. Por ejemplo, en la primera elección entre el presidente Biden y Trump, el presidente Biden recibió un 61% del voto latino, mientras que, como dije anteriormente, Trump recibió un 36%. De manera que el apoyo hacia el presidente Trump ha aumentado significativamente desde el 2016. Hemos visto un cambio de opinión dentro de los votantes latinos hacia esa dirección. Sin embargo, hemos visto recientemente un descenso significativo en el apoyo de los latinos hacia el presidente. Solo 11% de los latinos reportan estar viviendo cómodos, y un 29% tienen problemas con sus gastos cotidianos, con la canasta familiar. En el Congreso, por ejemplo, nacionalmente vemos que ahora los demócratas, preparándonos hacia las elecciones del año que viene, tienen un porcentaje, una ventaja de 24% sobre los republicanos, mientras 18% del electorado se mantienen neutral. Latinos creen que los demócratas pueden hacer más por su gente por un margen de 25%. Y cuando se toma el tema más importante encuestado, que es el tema de salud, porque el costo de salud aquí no solo es algo que impacta el bolsillo de los residentes y ciudadanos, sino también que incluso tiene un impacto económico en lo que es la economía del país. Vemos que los recortes del Medicaid y del Medicare están causando un impacto muy directo y muy dramático en la opinión de los latinos en torno a la actual administración. Por ejemplo, el distrito que yo represento, que tiene 788,000 personas, 488,000 de ellos son recipientes del Medicaid, o sea, del plan de salud público. 118,000 son recipientes del Medicare, esos son los envejecientes. 300,000 son recipientes del plan de SNAP, los cupones de alimentos. O sea que hay 600,000 personas de las 788,000 personas que yo represento que reciben un seguro público de salud, que se ve ahora naturalmente impactado con recortes sin precedentes. En torno al electorado se ve una actitud muy fuerte en contra de esos recortes, y naturalmente está impactando de manera desproporcionada al distrito que yo represento. Algo que me lleva a dirigirme a un tema muy específico y es lo que yo llamo el romance tóxico dominicano con la administración de Donald Trump. Y quiero referirme a eso porque la administración del presidente Trump no solo se debe de ver en torno a lo que él hace allá, sino también a lo que él le hace a la diáspora. Si entonces se llama ser amigo, pero impone aranceles de un 15%, ya después que la República Dominicana está dentro del marco de lo que es un tratado de libre comercio, que es el DR-CAFTA, y si impacta dramáticamente de una manera negativa a la población aquí en los Estados Unidos, a la diáspora, imponiéndole recorte a lo que es el seguro de salud, los cupones de alimentos, recorte a la educación bilingüe, eliminó por completo el departamento bilingüe dentro del Departamento de Educación de los Estados Unidos, algo que es una herramienta muy importante para niños nuestros que llegan de República Dominicana y de otros países que están en transición de aprender el idioma. Todas estas medidas yo diría que están impactando dramáticamente a nuestra población y la evaluación de esa administración debe de justamente ser dentro del marco de ese impacto. Creo que es importante que se vea así en la República Dominicana, que no solo se vea desde el punto de vista de la óptica de la isla, sino también de la óptica de cómo esas medidas están impactando a su diáspora, que de manera desprendida sigue siendo una entidad de apoyo para la economía dominicana, no solamente con sus remesas, que es la vista tradicional, porque manda remesas que le llegan no a las grandes compañías de turismo, de hoteleras, sino a los bolsillos de los más necesitados. Y esas remesas llegan al colmado, doblan a la ferretería, después pasan a la farmacia, y yo le aseguro que las damas me dicen que también entran al salón de belleza, pero le dan 3 o 4 veces la vuelta al vecindario, impacta de una manera muy importante en la economía nuestra. Entonces esa diáspora que tanto le da a cambio de nada a la República Dominicana también merece ser protegida de esos recortes y de esas acciones importantes. Yo creo firmemente que por esa razón el voto latino en las próximas elecciones del año que viene será decisivo y que se va a inclinar a favor, como siempre lo ha hecho, de que exista un equilibrio en el Congreso, o mejor dicho, en el gobierno federal, donde el Ejecutivo, en este caso es republicano, pero que la Cámara de Representantes caiga en el control del Partido Demócrata, para que haya un balance saludable y se discutan las ideas de una manera equitativa que no le cause daños desproporcionados a ninguna comunidad, particularmente a la que yo represento, que es la comunidad dominicana. Muchas gracias.
All right, we have 3 New Yorkers on stage here. Let's start with the election that I mentioned that's taking place in 41 days. According to the Hispanic Federation, with more than 1 million registered voters, Latinos comprise 23%, just shy of 1 in 4 voters in this city. So it is no exaggeration to say that Latinos can make or break this election for any candidate in November. A couple of questions. What are you seeing on the ground? What are the issues most important to Latino voters in the city of New York? What messages are getting through? And what do you think the headline will be on November 5th when it comes to the Latino vote for mayor of the city of New York?
Buenas tardes a todos. Good afternoon. I will speak in English, pero también hablo perfectamente español y estoy dispuesta a responder preguntas luego. With respect to the New York City election, certainly Latinos will make a difference. As you've seen in recent elections around the country, and in New York City also, elections get decided by very small margins. Last year's elections, you saw around the country, many elections that got decided by less than 1%. So having a 23% vote margin in New York City are not only making Latinos make a difference, but also they're a critical portion of the electorate. And what we've seen in the recent polling is that Latino values are the same as American values. The cost of living and affordability are at the forefront of the agenda. So economy first, but certainly healthcare, climate, guns and safety in our community, as well as other issues play a role. And the national landscape also plays a role because folks are concerned about what they see in the news with respect to oppression and mass incarceration and militarization of some of our cities. So my prediction, which is to your question, is that you'll see high voter turnout among the Latino community who are engaged around the issues and certainly who are concerned about the future of our city. What we've seen is that they're not happy with the direction of our city today, and they want something new, something different, uplifting candidates. What we've seen in the polling is that they favored the Democratic candidate, Zoran Mondani, and I think that we'll see that reflected on Election Day as well.
Thank you. Latinos are concerned about affordability, about rent, about the cost of daycare, which is often so expensive that a mother or a father would rather stay home and take care of their kids rather than earn less than the cost of health care. And because of that, I think that the affordability issues will drive the agenda. We see a significant number of Latinos leave New York City to places like Pennsylvania and Massachusetts and other places that are less expensive. So the Democratic candidate that I support, Zoran Mondani, talks about three issues: freezing the rent, fast and free buses, and also free universal daycare. Those are the three agenda items that he has promoted, and I think that he'll be able to deliver that. And I think he will win the next election.
And do you think that Latinos will deliver that margin of victory for him? Is that your prediction?
I believe that he will do better with Latino voters than he did in the primary election, yes. And I think that he will break the 50% margin.
Okay, because in the primary, in some of the districts, I looked in your district, he had margins of going as high as 80%. He was doing extremely well. You think they'll replicate that in the general?
In the primary, I believe that he lost the Latino vote.
Okay.
By a small margin, not by single digits.
Right.
Particularly in my district, you saw he lost the Bronx part of the district and east of Broadway in Washington Heights, which is the predominantly Latino neighborhoods. But I believe that in this election, in the general election, he will break over 50%.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I could add, the primary, of course, is a totally different electorate. And so certainly you saw neighborhood by neighborhood how Latinos voted differently. Certainly endorsements mattered, as well as the infrastructure that the candidate was able to put together on the ground. I think that since the primary, also Zoran Mondani has made tremendous inroads, building his infrastructure along the lines of Latino neighborhoods, as well as working with Latino elected officials, as well as even putting out commercials with him speaking very eloquently in Spanish to make sure that he's able to address our community in a culturally competent way.
This is
so
where he's winning
working
the
it.
election, by the way.
He's working it,
He's very
and I
good
think
at
you'll see the results on election day.
Right, okay. Okay, let's move from local, from our home city, to national politics. Congressman, in response to President Trump's State of the Union address this year, you gave a speech in Spanish saying, "Los latinos somos el corazón latiente de esta economía y de este país." I agree with that, and I would also add increasingly, el corazón latiente de nuestra política, también. But for the last 6 months, we've seen something of a political split screen nationally. On the one hand, every day we see dramatic, heartbreaking videos of Latinos being subject to what can only be called ethnic profiling. On the other hand, there are reports of voter registration significantly benefiting Republicans, with Democrats losing in record numbers, in record numbers. What is the accurate picture? Are we looking potentially at buyer's remorse over the last 8 months? Or are Latinos okay with this split picture I just mentioned? And then Katharine.
I believe very strongly that the mass deportation efforts by this administration have had a negative impact. Como dicen en dominicano, una cosa es llamar al diablo, otra es verla llegar. So I visited the detention center.
Wow.
And I met many Dominicans there, men and women, that are being deported. And they're not criminals. They're working men and women that are trying to provide for their families. In fact, many of them go to court on a regularly scheduled court appearance in immigration court. Their case is dismissed only to go outside and encounter a masked ICE agent that will cuff them, arrest them, and deport them. I think that's having an impact on public opinion, because I think those are our family members that are being treated that way. And of course, that will have an impact on the opinion of our community regarding that. If the deportations were regarding violent felons, I think that our community would say, fine. You know, they broke the law, they should go back. But when you're talking about a mom or a dad, and a family will be split and fractured, that's a different story. And I think it's having a dramatic impact, in addition to the cuts on Medicaid and Medicare.
Sure. Katharine?
I think that for a lot of folks, both sentiments can be real, and they're also interconnected, right? Let's go back. It's not that there was a massive turn to Donald Trump in 2024, as the congressman correctly laid out. We've seen a trajectory of movement towards Trump since 2016. Certainly, there's always been 30 to 35% of Latinos that have voted Republican throughout history. But like the stock market, sometimes sentiment goes up, sentiment goes down. And what we're seeing today is that folks are, again, very tied into the economic issues. They want to lower the cost of living, they want good paying jobs, they want health care, they want safe neighborhoods. But also, you have to look at it from the cultural lens. So yes, many of us live in mixed status families, so the mass deportation agenda is having an impact, right? As well as the fact that we're more likely to be in abusive jobs and have worker exploitation. We're also concerned about protecting our freedoms. Many of us come from countries that have experienced authoritarian regimes. So we're seeing a lot of that beginning stages here in America, which we never thought we would, right, in the United States. And for folks who've lived somewhere else, that's something that has an impact as well. So I think both things can coexist. They're interconnected, but anger doesn't always translate to votes. And I think that what's happened is that the Republicans, through their disinformation campaign, have been able to make a lot of inroads within the Latino community, and they are investing a lot of resources. They've invested them early. And so in order for Democrats to recapture our community, those disenfranchised voters that perhaps went with Trump, but also the millions of voters that stayed home. Because it's not just that some Latinos voted for Trump, it's also that many of them stayed home. How we engage them in this moment, it's going to have a lot to do with the investment that the party makes, that the candidates make. Of course, we also want to make sure we have uplifting candidates that folks can get excited around. And that we're doing the work in communities, right, to get out information about what's happening with Medicare and Medicaid and SNAP and remesas and all of the other issues. So there's a lot of work to be done, and now is the moment. If we're alive in this moment, nobody can sit this out.
Right, and we saw in 2024 Miami-Dade County switch from the Democrats to the Republicans. So you think that this in 2026 can be what you said, sort of a market correction? You think it could go back, is that right?
Absolutely, and throughout history, if you look at the elections for president, for example, since 1789, we've had 19 Republicans and 17 Democrats. Sure, there was 4 Federalists and 4...
Whig Party, whatever they were?
1 Federalist, 4 Whigs, 4 Democratic Republicans, 1 unaffiliated. Yep. But having said that, the point is the Democrats and the Republicans, right, as the 2 major parties, have split the vote throughout history. Right. And especially now that we have a party that controls all 3 branches of government, there's more opportunity for a correction. This whole redistricting conversation nationally and in different states is going to make a difference too. I literally just got off a flight. I came from Texas, where we have one of the biggest battles in the redistricting landscape. And yet at the same time, in Arizona yesterday, we won a new congressional seat, the first Latina in Arizona, Adelita Grijalva, who will be taking office and helping Congressman Espaillat deliver an agenda in Congress. So there's already good examples of how the Democrats are starting to win races all around the country. I think we will continue to see that as long as we continue to do the work and deliver the message.
Okay, thank you. We've kind of talked about this a little bit, but let me ask it in a different way. Are we approaching a time when Latinos are becoming basically so integrated that they're almost indistinguishable from non-Latino voters? I mean, in other words, was James Carville right when he said, it's the economy, stupid, right, and everything else is secondary? Or is the story different or more nuanced? What do you think, Congressman?
Certainly, everything that impacts the American people, the cost of living, for example, impacts Latinos. And so we're not different in that sense. But we do have particular issues. Even in the immigration debate, it varies according to communities, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, for the Dominican community, the biggest issue pertaining to immigration is family reunification. There's over 400,000 individuals that have been petitioned by family members here. Per capita, is probably bigger than Mexico and the Philippines, which are the other 2 countries that have a higher number because they have a much higher population. Yep. So when I joined I became a co-sponsor of the Dignity Act, a piece of legislation brought forward by a Republican member, Maria Elvira Salazar. I saw a provision in the bill that called for family reunification by country. And the Dominican Republic was not there. So I told her, I'll co-sponsor the bill, but you have to include the Dominican Republic. The bill was already printed. So they literally hand wrote the paragraph in the bottom page of the bill to ensure that it was included. Because per capita, there's over 400,000 Dominicans that want to bring their family members. So the bill called for expediting that process. So that's very important to us, much more important than I say the citizenship issue, because we are becoming citizens in high numbers. Or even the deportation issue, because we are, for the most part, green card holders or citizens. The numbers of Dominicans that are being deported is not as high as the immigrants from El Salvador or from Guatemala or maybe even Mexico. So it in many ways our issues are similar to what every American feel is important, but we also have a niche here, a niche that is important to us.
Understand. Katharine?
I agree with the congressman, and he actually had mentioned to me a while back something that makes a lot of sense to folks as it relates to their pocket as well. So in terms of immigration, what we really need is comprehensive immigration reform.
Correct.
You cannot keep addressing a very complex issue in a piecemeal way.
And that can only be done on a bipartisan basis.
And that can only be done on a bipartisan basis. Frankly, the congressman knows the Democrats have put forth many plans and made concessions to try to get this done, working very, very hard. It was not in Trump's best interest to get comprehensive immigration reform passed. As a matter of fact, he reached out to Republicans to hold it up so that he can continue to create this narrative around his candidacy. And one of the things that I think that the caucus has laid out in terms of priorities is really dreamers, because a lot of us can agree that our children who came here through no fault of their own should be entitled to the benefits of a pathway to citizenship. Certainly family unity, but also farm workers, because what you've seen is that a lot of the cost of living, including for food, is as a result of some of the policies that the administration has implemented. So certainly, I think those are areas where there could be a lot of agreement in a bipartisan way. I congratulate the congressman on the work that he has done in these areas, and hopefully, as it relates to immigration, we can get to a point where we can have real discussions around comprehensive immigration reform.
Great. Terrific. I think the last time there was any real serious comprehensive bipartisan legislation was during the Reagan administration, if I'm not mistaken, which gives you an idea of how long this has been gone undiscussed. I just want to let everybody know that we're going to do 5 more minutes, and then we're going to have a Q&A, correct? We'll have a Q&A from the audience, so people have a chance to participate. So let me ask another question on different generations and new media, right? Just this month, former legendary Univision journalist Jorge Ramos launched an English-language podcast with his daughter called The Moment with Jorge and Paulo Ramos. I think this is a kind of intergenerational dialogue, is long overdue in every community. But what are you seeing among Latino voters with the generational differences? The fact is that this podcast, for example, is being done in English, which is kind of groundbreaking in a way. What are you seeing with different generations politically?
Well, I was in the podcast with him already, but I say that messaging is everything, and if you accomplish something and you don't message it right, then it just never happened. Right. And part of the issues that my party has had is in messaging. Yep. And so when you talk about messaging, you have to consider the new tools, artificial intelligence and other tools that are there now that are effective and have virtually challenged the traditional ways of communicating to the general public. Right. And so the more that changes, you have to adjust. And I think Jorge Ramos began that podcast not because a podcast is so important now. And even for Latino, WhatsApp is an important platform,
Absolutely.
right? That is not that important for the other populations.
Sure.
So we have to adjust. But he also moved on to the podcast world because I believe he was very uncomfortable with the arrangements of his network and the current administration. And so, yes, I think that things will change. They are changing, and we have to adjust to it. And the traditional way of communication is becoming less and less effective. And so we have to constantly reinvent ourselves.
So, as the congressman stated earlier, there were a little over 36 million eligible voters, Latino eligible voters in 2024. That was a growth since 2018 of about 4.7 million eligible voters. About 60% of the overall electorate, so not just Latinos, 60% of the overall electorate growth in the United States. Our electorate, by the way, is very young, and most of that growth is attributed to the fact of young people aging into voting age. So what you see is that 40% of our voters, Latino voters, are now younger voters. And that's going to be critical, a critical population for us to engage if we're going to win elections. For any candidate, the Republican, Democrat, Independent, engaging young Latino voters is going to be critical because they can make the difference between win and lose. And so, yes, many of them are digital native first. And having digital outlets is going to be critical to winning elections.
Great. Just a quick announcement. I've been told, actually, we're not going to have time for Q&A, unfortunately. You can ask questions during the coffee break, but we have about 1 minute left, and I'm going to take prerogative as the moderator and as a professor at Columbia, at SIPA. I'm going to read you a quote, and I'm going to ask you who said it. Quote, "We lead the world because, unique among nations, we draw our people, our strength, from every country and every corner of the world. And in doing so, we continuously renew and enrich our nation. While other countries cling to the stale past, here in America, we breathe life into dreams. We create the future, and the world follows us into tomorrow. And thanks to each wave of new arrivals to this land of opportunity, we're a nation forever young," end quote. Now let me ask the question, who thinks that was written by John F. Kennedy? Anybody? Okay, Bill Clinton? Anybody raising? Nobody's raising their hand? Okay. Barack Obama? We have one hand for Barack Obama, two hands for Barack, three, okay, several. Okay, who, I'm sure the congressman knows, who do you think said that quote? It was Ronald Reagan in his farewell address. It was Ronald Reagan in his farewell address. So I just wanted to quote that to say that I think that politics is the art of the possible, so it may be possible to go back to this vision, I hope. I want to leave on that note of hope. With that, thank you very much.